Hello everyone, this is Toma from tomabonchu.com. Today I'm going to test out this relatively new feature from Lightroom CC, the dehaze feature. It's been out for about 2 weeks, I think now. I have selected these 4 photos for you to see how this dehaze, how well it works. Now, these 4 photos were made using a Canon 60D because they were made with a 70 to 200 f4 ISL lens from Canon, and I usually have this lens on my Canon 60D. I've also made the same kind of images with a Canon 5D Mark II, but given the fact that the 60D is a crop sensor and it's a relatively old one, not that old, but okay, pretty I wanted to see how well this dehaze will perform and how much noise and artifacts and things like that will introduce in photos made with sensors, with older sensors that are maybe not that let's say well built in terms of dynamic range. If you want to compare them with the today's sensors in the 5D Mark III, for example, or 70D or 7D Mark II, or if you want in the Nikon section, the 800 and 810 or 610 and sensors like this. So let's get going. We have 4 images. Let's quickly edit them and see what results do we get. So let's go to develop. As you can see, I also have a small lens flare over here. Now the situation was dense, not only dense fog, morning mist. Moisture was being heated by the rising sun, and this moisture created this wet atmosphere, this foggy atmosphere. Now I have the sun right in front of me, and this creates this light in the fog. Every time you see a histogram like this where the graphic is presented only in a small portion of the histogram, you'll immediately know that you have a low contrast image. And this is crucial to know because you have to know also how to bring back that detail, and this is where shooting RAW means a lot, because if you're shooting JPEG and you have this kind of histogram and you want to add contrast, then you will lose much of the detail. Now, before dehaze, you had two alternative methods that I'm going to use only on this first image, and the other one, and on the other images I will only use dehaze because it clearly works better. Now, the first option you have to increase contrast and detail, you simply use this contrast slider. As you can see, the graphics go simultaneously to the left and to the right, and the resulted image is something like this. Now you'll have to correct, of course, the white balance, and you'll get something like this. Okay, let's reset these 2 sliders. Now the second method is for you to control the black point, the white point, and the result is, let's say, in some cases slightly better, but again, it's not there. You're not seeing detail in some areas as well as you might want. Now let's go with the dehaze method. First of all, I'm going to use I'm going to crop it and straighten the photo a little bit. Now this flare over here, you can try to remove it in Lightroom, but usually I do this kind of things in Photoshop, are much more easier to fix. But Okay, then let's go and enable profile correction for lenses and remove chromatic aberration. Now the second thing that I'm going to do is to remove this amount of 25 of sharpening that Lightroom introduces by default, and this will increase the noise if you have the noise on the image, if you have noise on the image. Although it's an ISO 100, you can see at 100% that you can see noise. I have to admit that when I bought this camera a few years back, I didn't saw the noise, but if I would have to compare the quality of the image with the today's sensors, now I think I can say that I see the noise. So that is why I'm going to totally remove this sharpening, and also I'm going to use a value of, let's say, 20 in the luminance for noise reduction. And let's go down here in the effects panel. If you have the latest version of Lightroom CC 2015, you have this dehaze slider, and you simply drag it to your right and let it make its magic. Now, of course, that the result is similar in with the other two methods, in terms that it produces this yellow kind of tint on the entire image, but the detail that appears, it's far better than the other two methods. So the image still holds. I don't like how this flare was corrected. I'm going to try and correct it a little bit better, but as I told you, I will fix it in Photoshop if needed. Now let's go back upstairs, and I will adjust the temperature. Okay, and a little bit of tint, and you can go in saturation and dim down a little bit the saturation in the green, in the yellow channel, and the orange channel. Now this is basically the starting point of your image. Now you can really increase the details, and you can start editing, really editing the photo. Let's do some quick things. For example, I will introduce some more green in this lower area, and also in the trees. And in this upper part of the photo. You always have to be very careful when you're doing things like this to not overdo it, because the minute you're going, let's say, something like this, and you get this yellow out of this planet, it will look odd. I will bump up the contrast and a little bit of vibrance. I will also go in the luminance of the yellow. Okay, make it a little bit brighter, and I will use this Radial Filter. Increase the exposure, and adding another one over here. And another one over here. Now, if you compare this image to this one, which is the original, the amount of detail that I got using the dehaze was pretty significant. You can try and obtain something similar by increasing the contrast selectively where you want, but you will not get this amount of detail. Let's move on to the next image. Again, high fog, remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction, remove the sharpening, a 20 of noise reduction. I'm using this value of noise reduction because I saw that using dehaze on this older sensor introduces some noise, so I want to compensate for that. I'm going to use the crop tool and create a more panoramic view. And now let's go to the effects panel again, dehaze, and let it work its magic. And as you can see, the detail is brought back to life. I will alter the temperature just like I did on the previous image, but I will do it selectively. That is why I'm going to use a brush, and I'm going to paint over these trees over here. Now, why am I doing this? Why am I am altering the color temperature? Because I want a better separation. You see, this is here I have warm colors. Now I want to have a much more green trees that are greener, if I can say something like this. Okay, hit new. I'm creating another brush for the rock, itself. Okay, and increase the exposure just a little bit and make it, whoa, again be careful not to overdo it, something like this. Okay, now I'm going to use a graduated, and I'm going to lower the exposure in the upper part too much, and then new, and also lower the exposure in the lower part. I think in the upper part I will leave it something like this, and in the end I will use this radial, increasing the contrast, the blacks, and the overall vibrance. I think the green channel is a little bit too saturated in the end. I will dim it down a little bit, and also the blue channel. The yellow, I think I'm going to increase it, and also the luminance in the yellow. And the green, make it much more black. I will bump up this white, the white channel, and the black. Okay, now in the end I'm going to desaturate a little bit also the yellow, something like this. Let's take a look at the original image. This was it, and this is after. You have to also understand that I'm doing these edits pretty fast, and if you're seeing, let's say, areas where I'm not 100% careful, it's because I want to show you all these 4 images and how this dehaze feature can help you. Okay, first of all, let's straighten this image up, something like this. Again, remove chromatic aberration, enable profile correction. Now I will not alter the sharpening and luminance, just to see the amount of noise that, as you can see, there is some noise, but let's see how much noise the dehaze feature will introduce. Let's use it. let's see, if you overdo it, of course that you're going to have chromatic aberrations and lots of noise. But you don't have to overdo it. You only have to bring back detail to a certain amount, and you basically go from there with your image. Okay, let's take a look at the amount of noise now. As you can see, there is some noise, but not that much. Once you remove this sharpening, there is significantly lower, and with a luminance of 20, it's gone, and the detail it's still there. Now, in terms of editing, you can go further and use the blacks to create much more contrast than the whites. Of course, that you need to correct the temperature of the image. In this area you have a halo of light or a big lens flare, and you'll have to correct this. The easiest way to correct it is in Photoshop, where you're going to paint this area and slightly desaturate it. I will not try to correct this in Lightroom, since it will be, let's try using the brush, and let's see the result in a very quick selection. Let's desaturate it. Nope, doesn't work. If I'm desaturating, it looks awful. It looks better if I'm saturating the area. This is strange, but I'll have to check it out in Photoshop to remove it. So these kind of things I remove in Photoshop. Now I'm going to use this radial again, and again I'm repeating in a really quick editing. Okay, I'm increasing the attention on this this volumetric fog. As you can see here in the haystacks, you can see the moisture being warmed by the rising sun, and the moisture is rising in terms of steam from the haystacks. Okay, and another radial filter for these houses over here. In the end, a little bit of contrast. Now, these images were shot in pretty difficult conditions, as you can see. This is the maximum that the sensor of the camera was able to capture. Now, from an image that looks like this to go to an image that looks like this, I think it's a good way to be walked. And in the end, the final image was this one. Okay, and again, enable profile correction and remove chromatic aberration, remove sharpening, a luminance of 20. Now going on the dehaze, you get something like this. And now this image, it's pretty easy to edit. Just decrease the highlights a little bit, use graduated filter in the lower part to color correct the grass, and use the highlights, lower the exposure, hit new, introduce some more bluish light in the back to create the separation, and also lower the exposure. and in the end use Radial Filter. I think I will yes, and some more contrast. Hit new and create another graduated filter on the top, and new another one. Now I'm going to go in the saturation of the blue channel and decrease the blue and aqua a little bit. In the end, increase the contrast. Okay, and again, let's take a look at the original image, something like this, and the resulted image. Of course, it may be a little bit bluish in the background, but it's a matter of taste, and I know it's not an excuse, but I love to say this. It's because the quick editing. Okay, everyone. I hope that seeing how the dehaze feature worked on these 4 images, you get a better a better view, or a better understanding, or a better opinion on how well the dehaze can work. I know for sure that because I've tested on new sensors, and on new sensors where the sensor also has a higher dynamic range and it's able to capture much more detail, the dehaze feature works incredibly well. I mean, it's a feature that will open new possibilities in the photo editing, because there were many situations where you had low or really low contrast images because of the haze, because of the fog, because of the steam of the light and different atmospheric conditions, and no matter how hard you try to alter the black areas, the shadows, the highlights, the whites, you couldn't you weren't able to get this much detail that the dehaze feature is now offering. So thanks for watching. Keep subscribing to this YouTube channel, share it with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever social media channel you are into, and until next time, keep on photographing, because it's the only way that you can get better. Thanks for watching again, and bye bye.